The red warning lights flashed across the bridge of the Coalition flagship Harmony's Dawn. Admiral Vextar watched the tactical display with growing horror as another defensive line collapsed. The insect-like Cosmore swarm was cutting through their forces like a knife through paper. "Sir, the Third Fleet is requesting permission to retreat," reported Communications Officer Zella, her blue crystalline form flickering with stress patterns. Vextar's elongated head drooped. The Third Fleet was their strongest defensive unit, and even they couldn't hold the line. His species, the Altarians, had not fought a real war in over 1,000 years. None of the Coalition races had. They were peaceful people who had evolved beyond the need for violence. "How many ships have we lost?" he asked quietly. 712 confirmed destroyed, sir. 200 more missing." Zella's voice carried the musical tone typical of her people, but now it sounded broken. The bridge fell silent except for the humming of the ship's systems. 700 ships. Thousands of lives. The Cosmore were not just winning. They were destroying everything in their path. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the Cosmore Queenship," announced the tactical officer. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing the terrifying form of a Cosmore commander. Its black eyes reflected no emotion, no mercy. When it spoke, the voice was like grinding metal. "Coalition weaklings, your surrender is inevitable. Submit now, and your deaths will be swift." The transmission ended. Vextar stared at the blank screen. The Coalition had tried negotiation, tried offering territory, tried everything their peaceful nature could think of. The Cosmore wanted only one thing: complete destruction of all other life. "Sir," said Science Officer Near, his aquatic suit bubbling as he spoke, "the Cosmore have broken through the outer rim defenses. At their current speed, they will reach the core worlds in 48 standard hours. 48 hours. Vextar thought of his homeworld, Altair Prime with its crystal cities and floating gardens. He thought of the billions of peaceful beings who had never known war. They would be slaughtered without mercy. "Send an emergency broadcast on all known frequencies," he ordered. "Maximum range. Request immediate military assistance from any capable civilization." "Sir, we've already contacted all Coalition members and allied species," Zella reminded him gently. "Then contact everyone else. Every species we know of, whether they're Coalition members or not. Send it to the unexplored sectors too. Someone out there might be able to help." The crew worked quickly to prepare the transmission. They had little hope, but it was better than none. The message went out across the galaxy, reaching hundreds of species and thousands of worlds. Most who received it were too far away to help. Others, like the Coalition races, were too peaceful to make a difference. But in a small system on the outer rim, on a blue-green world called Earth, something different happened. Admiral Sarah Chen sat in her office at Terra Station, reviewing supply reports when the communication came in. Her aide, Lieutenant Williams, brought her the decoded message with a puzzled expression. "Ma'am, we just received this long-range transmission. It's unusual." Chen read the message twice, then called up the attached data files. The information painted a picture of a galactic war unlike anything Earth had imagined. Species she had never heard of were fighting for their survival against something called the Cosmore Swarm. "What do we know about these Coalition people?" she asked. Williams pulled up his tablet. "Very little, ma'am. Our deep space monitoring stations have picked up some of their communications over the years, but we assumed they were too far away to matter. From what we can tell, they're a peaceful alliance of alien species." Chen studied the tactical data. The Coalition's military technology was impressive in some ways. Their energy shields and faster-than-light travel were more advanced than Earth's, but their fighting methods looked wrong. "Look at these battle reports," she said, pointing to her screen. "They form defensive lines and wait for the enemy to attack. No flanking maneuvers, no surprise attacks, no psychological warfare. It's like they've never fought a real war." "Should we respond, ma'am?" Chen leaned back in her chair. Earth had only achieved faster-than-light travel 5 years ago. They weren't even a recognized galactic power. Getting involved in an alien war seemed crazy, but then she thought about the message's tone. The desperation was clear even through the translation software. These people were about to be wiped out. "Get me General Rodriguez and Admiral Park," she ordered, "and pull up the files on the 3rd Expeditionary Force." An hour later, Chen sat in the secure briefing room with her top military commanders. The holographic display showed the coalition's situation in detail. "It's a massacre," said General Rodriguez, shaking his head. "These Cosmore things are using basic swarm tactics, but the coalition can't handle them. Look at this. They retreat when they take 5% casualties."
5%!
Admiral Park, who commanded Earth's space fleet, studied the enemy data. The Cosmore appear to be a hive mind species, probably evolved from something like army ants. They're organized but not creative. Standard tactics should work against them. "The question is whether we should get involved at all," Chen said. "This isn't our fight." "Ma'am, with respect, maybe it should be," Rodriguez replied. "If these Cosmore wipe out the coalition, what's to stop them from coming after us next? Earth might not be on their current path, but empires tend to expand." Chen nodded. She had been thinking the same thing. Better to fight the enemy while they were busy with someone else than wait for them to show up at Earth's doorstep. "What could we contribute?" she asked. "The coalition has hundreds of ships. We have 12. "Sometimes it's not about numbers," Park said quietly. "It's about knowing how to fight. These coalition species, they're not warriors. They don't understand war the way we do." Chen looked at the tactical displays again. The coalition was losing because they fought like civilized people. They tried to minimize casualties, avoid collateral damage, and maintain honor in battle. It was admirable, but it was getting them killed. Humans had learned different lessons. Earth was a hostile world where everything tried to kill you. The weather, the animals, the diseases, even other humans. Her species had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of warfare. They knew things about fighting that these peaceful aliens had never imagined. "How quickly can we deploy the 3rd Expeditionary Force?" she asked. Park checked his tablet. 72 hours for full deployment. 3 ships, 15,000 Marines, full combat load. "Do it. Send them to these coordinates." Chen marked the coalition's staging area on the map. "And Admiral, authorize Deathworld protocols." Park's eyes widened slightly. Deathworld protocols meant fighting the way humans had learned to fight on Earth. No holding back. No gentlemanly rules. No mercy for the enemy. "Ma'am, are you sure? These coalition people might not understand." "They asked for reinforcements," Chen interrupted. "They didn't specify what kind. If they want to survive this war, they're going to learn that sometimes peace requires monsters to guard it." The orders went out within the hour. 3 human warships prepared for their first major engagement with alien forces. The coalition had asked for help, but they had no idea what was coming. They were about to meet Earth's children, the products of a world that had taught them to survive by being better killers than anything else in the galaxy. 3 human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Kepler Station. The massive coalition staging ground hung in space like a glittering jewel, surrounded by the broken remains of defensive fleets. Commander Marcus Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Terran Pride, watching the alien station grow larger on the view screen. After 6 days of travel, they had finally arrived. His orders were simple: help the coalition survive. How he did that was up to him. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the station," reported Communications Officer Hayes. "Put it through." The screen flickered, showing the elongated features of Admiral Vextar. The alien's large eyes studied Rodriguez with obvious curiosity and disappointment. "Welcome to Kepler Station, humans. I am Admiral Vextar of the Galactic Defense Coalition. We were expecting a larger force." Rodriguez kept his expression neutral. 3 ships against a galactic invasion probably did look pathetic to these people. "Admiral Vextar, I'm Commander Rodriguez of the Terran Expeditionary Force. We may be small, but we're here to help. Permission to dock?" "Of course. Base 77 Alpha. We have much to discuss." An hour later, Rodriguez walked through the station's corridors with a small security detail. The place was huge, easily 10 times larger than any human space station. But what struck him most was the atmosphere of defeat. Alien crew members moved like ghosts, their various forms drooping with exhaustion and fear. The meeting room was filled with coalition leaders representing different species. Rodriguez recognized some from the intelligence files: the crystalline Zephyrians who communicated through light patterns, the aquatic Nereidans in their water-filled mobility suits, and the energy-based Luxari who looked like living flames. Admiral Vexitar gestured to a chair sized for humans. "Please sit. We must coordinate our defense strategies." Rodriguez remained standing. "Before we start, I need to understand how you've been fighting this war." A Zephyrian officer, her crystal body pulsing with blue light, activated a holographic display. Our standard formation places shield-heavy vessels in front, with support craft providing covering fire. When casualties reach 5%, units fall back to regroup. 5%? Rodriguez couldn't hide his surprise, yes. Any higher losses would be unacceptable, Vextar explained. We are civilized beings. We do not waste lives needlessly. Rodriguez studied the tactical displays. The Coalition's battle plans looked like something from a military academy textbook. Neat, orderly, and completely predictable. What about offensive operations? Surprise attacks? Psychological warfare? The aliens exchanged confused glances. A Narration commander gurgled through his translator. We do not understand. What is psychological warfare? Dr. Elena Vasquez, the expedition's xenobiologist, leaned forward. Admiral, may I ask how your species evolved? What was your homeworld like? Vexter seemed puzzled by the question. Altair Prime is a garden world. Stable climate, abundant resources, no major predators. My people learned cooperation because it was more efficient than conflict. And the others? Similar stories, replied the Zephyrian. The Zephyr homeworld is peaceful. Competition was unnecessary when there was plenty for everyone. Vasquez nodded, making notes on her tablet. Commander, these species evolved past the need for violence. Their worlds were paradises compared to Earth. Rodriguez was beginning to understand. These aliens had never learned to fight because they had never needed to. War to them was a last resort conducted with minimal casualties and maximum honor. Admiral Vextar, I think there's been a misunderstanding. When you asked for military assistance, what exactly did you expect? Ships like ours, but perhaps more advanced. Crew trained in defensive tactics, technology that could help us protect our worlds. You wanted more soldiers like yourself, of course. What else would we want? Rodriguez exchanged glances with his officers. How do you explain to peaceful people that you're the product of a world that tried to kill you every day for millions of years? Dr. Vasquez, would you mind explaining human evolution to our hosts? Vasquez activated her tablet, projecting images of Earth. Admiral, humans evolved on what we call a Class 12 death world. Extreme weather, massive predators, diseases, natural disasters, and limited resources. Everything on our planet was trying to kill us. The aliens stared at the images of Earth's history. Ice ages. Volcanic eruptions, massive storms, creatures with teeth and claws. For millions of years, Vasquez continued, humans survived by being better at violence than everything else. We developed tools, tactics, and something you might not understand. The ability to kill without hesitation when threatened. A Luxari officer flickered with alarm. You mean, you are natural predators? Among other things, Rodriguez said quietly. We're also natural soldiers. Earth taught us that sometimes to protect what you love, you have to be willing to destroy what threatens it. Vextar's head tilted. But surely you've evolved past such primitive instincts. No, Admiral. We've learned to control them, but they're still there. And right now you need them. The room fell silent. Rodriguez could see the aliens processing this information, trying to understand what they had asked for. Perhaps, said the Zephyrian officer slowly, you could demonstrate your methods. Rodriguez smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. I think that can be arranged. The training exercise took place in one of the station's cargo bays. Coalition officers gathered to watch as a squad of human Marines set up a mock battlefield. Sergeant Thompson led 12 soldiers through what humans called a fire and movement drill. The aliens watched in growing alarm as the humans moved through simulated enemy positions. The Marines didn't advance in neat lines like coalition forces. They scattered, using cover, coordinating attacks while some provided suppressing fire. When one Marine went down with simulated wounds, the others didn't retreat. They became more aggressive. Notice how they adapt, Dr. Vasquez explained to the silent alien audience. When the situation changes, their tactics change instantly. They don't follow a preset plan, they improvise. The demonstration climax came when Sergeant Thompson called for something called acceptable losses. Half her squad simulated death while the others completed their objective. Vextar was visibly shaken. They sacrifice their own people? When necessary, Rodriguez replied. The mission comes first. Sometimes people die so that others can live, and this is barbaric, protested the Narration commander. This is effective, Rodriguez corrected. Your people retreat when you take 5% casualties. Humans have won battles after losing 50% or more. We don't like it, but we do what's necessary. Alarms suddenly blared through the station. The tactical displays lit up with enemy contacts. Cosmore probe attack, announced a coalition officer. 50 ships approaching fast. Rodriguez watched the coalition's response. Their ships formed the same defensive lines he had seen in the tactical reports. Neat, orderly, and doomed. Admiral Vextar, request permission to engage the enemy. But you only have 3 ships. That's enough. Permission to engage? Vextar hesitated, then nodded. Granted. Rodriguez activated his communicator. All Terran ships, this is Rodriguez. Time to show our new friends how Earth's children fight. Weapons-free Death World protocols authorized. The response came back immediately. Copy that, Commander. Let's go hunting. The coalition officers watched their screens in confusion as the 3 human ships broke formation and accelerated directly toward the Cosmore force. This wasn't defensive tactics, this was something they had never seen before. This was predators going after prey. The Cosmore probe force hit Kepler Station like a hammer. 50 enemy ships, each one designed for killing, smashed into the coalition's defensive line. The alien defenders held their formation and fired their energy weapons with practiced precision. It wasn't enough. Commander Rodriguez watched from the Terran Pride's bridge as coalition ships exploded. Under the Cosmore assault, the enemy moved like a swarm of angry wasps, coordinated but predictable. They had probably used the same tactics for centuries, sir. The coalition line is breaking, reported Tactical Officer Chen. They're taking heavy casualties. Good. That means the enemy is focused on them. Take us in behind the Cosmore formation, signal the Defiance and Retribution to follow our lead. The 3 human ships accelerated past the battle, moving faster than the larger coalition vessels. Rodriguez could see the confusion on the enemy tactical displays. The Cosmore had expected another defensive formation, not ships moving to attack their rear. Fire control target their command ship. Use the railguns, not the energy weapons. Sir, the railguns are considered primitive technology by galactic standards, Chen reminded him. That's why they'll work. The enemy has shields designed to stop energy beams, not solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. The Terran Pride fired its first salvo. Tungsten rods, accelerated to incredible speeds, punched through the Cosmore shields like they weren't there. The enemy command ship staggered as its hull cracked open. What the hell was that? Came a transmission from one of the coalition ships. Kinetic weapons, Rodriguez replied calmly. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. The Cosmore swarm reacted to the attack, turning to face this new threat. But humans had been fighting swarm tactics since they first faced army ants on Earth. Rodriguez knew exactly what to do. All ships. Scatter formation. Make them chase us. Split their attention. The 3 human vessels broke apart, forcing the Cosmore to divide their forces. Instead of one concentrated target, the enemy now faced 3 smaller, faster ships that refused to stay still. But the real battle was just beginning. Alarms screamed through Kepler Station as Cosmore boarding pods smashed through the outer hull. The insect-like warriors poured into the corridors, expecting the same passive resistance they had encountered from other coalition species. Staff Sergeant Amy Thompson led Alpha Company into the station's first level. Her Marines moved through the corridors like ghosts, using every trick they had learned from urban warfare on Earth. Remember, these bugs are used to fighting people who play fair, she told her squad over the comm. We don't play fair. We play to win. The Cosmore warriors were impressive, 7 feet tall, armored in natural chitin, with claws that could cut through steel. They moved in perfect formation, expecting their enemies to meet them head-on. Instead, they walked into a nightmare. Thompson's Marines had spent the last hour rigging the corridor with improvised explosives. As the first wave of Cosmore rounded the corner, the humans triggered the charges. The explosion didn't just kill the lead warriors. It brought down part of the ceiling, trapping the rest. Move, 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 Thompson shouted. Her Marines advanced through the smoke and debris, firing as they moved. But they weren't using the precise energy weapons favored by coalition forces. They used chemical propellant firearms, noisy, messy, and absolutely terrifying to enemies who had never encountered them. The Cosmore tried to form defensive lines, but the humans refused to cooperate. They attacked from unexpected angles, used the station's own systems against the invaders, and worst of all, they fought harder when their friends died. Private Martinez went down with a Cosmore claw through his chest. Instead of retreating, his squad became more aggressive. They carved through the enemy with controlled fury, using tactics that would have made coalition officers sick. "Thompson, this is Morrison," came a voice over the comm. "My squad is cut off in engineering. We've got about 30 bugs between us and the exit. Can you hold position?" "Negative. But we've got an idea. These bugs breathe oxygen, right?" Thompson smiled grimly. She knew what Morrison was thinking. "Do it." Lieutenant Jake Morrison and his squad had been trapped in the station's engineering section for 20 minutes. The Cosmore had them surrounded, but they had made one mistake. They had cornered humans in a room full of machinery. "Peters, can you reroute the atmosphere recycling system?" Morrison asked. "Already on it, sir. Give me 2 minutes." The Cosmore were pressing closer, their claws scraping against the metal barriers the humans had erected. Morrison checked his ammunition. They had enough for maybe 5 more minutes of fighting. "Done," Peters announced. "Atmosphere control is now hooked into the industrial heating system. All squad members seal your helmets. Full environmental suits." Morrison activated the modified system. Instead of circulating breathable air, the station's ventilation now pumped superheated steam through the corridors. The temperature jumped to over 200 degrees Fahrenheit in seconds. The Cosmore, with their insect-like biology, couldn't handle the heat. They retreated, their formation breaking as individual warriors fled the burning air. "Life support as a weapon," Morrison reported to Thompson. "I don't think they expected that." Admiral Vextar watched the tactical displays in horror and fascination. The humans weren't just fighting the Cosmore. They were doing things that violated every civilized convention of warfare. "They're using the station's own systems as weapons," reported his tactical officer. "Atmosphere control, gravity plating, even the communications array. How did they learn to do this so quickly?" Dr. Vasquez, who had remained on the bridge during the battle, answered quietly. "Because humans have been turning peaceful things into weapons for thousands of years. It's how we survived." The main display showed Sergeant Thompson's squad advancing through a corridor filled with Cosmore bodies. But what disturbed Vextar most wasn't the violence. It was the efficiency. The humans moved like they had been born for this. "Admiral," said the Zephyrian communications officer, her crystal form flickering with alarm patterns. "The Cosmore are retreating. The boarding force is pulling back to their ships." "Retreating?" Vextar couldn't believe it. The Cosmore had never retreated from anything. "Yes, sir. They're transmitting on all frequencies." "It sounds like panic." Rodriguez's voice came over the comm system. "Kepler Station, this is the Terran Pride. Enemy probe force is withdrawing. All Cosmore ships are returning to their main fleet." Vextar stared at the tactical display. In 30 minutes, the humans had done something the Coalition hadn't managed in months of fighting. They had made the Cosmore afraid. "Commander Rodriguez, how is this possible?" Rodriguez's image appeared on the main screen. His uniform was torn and there was blood on his face, but he looked satisfied. "Admiral, the Cosmore are a hive mind species. They're used to fighting enemies who think like them. Organized, predictable, civilized. Humans don't think like them. We adapt, improvise, and use everything around us as a weapon. But the casualties, we lost 43 Marines," Rodriguez reported. "The Cosmore lost their entire boarding force and 7 ships. That's what we call an acceptable exchange rate." Vextar felt sick. 43 beings had died, and the human commander spoke of it like a business transaction. "I know this is hard for you to understand," Rodriguez continued. "Your people are good, decent, civilized. But sometimes to protect good people you need monsters. Earth made us into monsters. Today that saved your station." The bridge fell silent. Through the viewports they could see the burning wrecks of Cosmore ships drifting away from the station. For the first time since the war began, the Coalition had won a battle. But the victory came with a terrible realization. The humans had shown them something they had never imagined. That there were species in the galaxy who had evolved not past violence, but to perfect it. "Admiral," Dr. Vasquez said softly, "you should know that this was just a probe attack. The real Cosmore fleet is still coming, and now they know about us." Vextar looked at the tactical projections. The main enemy force had over 1 million ships. Against that, 3 human vessels seemed impossibly small. "What do we do now?" he asked. Rodriguez smiled, and once again, it wasn't a pleasant expression. "Now, Admiral, you're going to learn what humans call total war. Because the Cosmore just made their biggest mistake. They threatened our new friends. And humans don't forgive that kind of threat. The Cosmore Queen Mother received the battle reports in her massive hive ship, deep within the swarm's core formation. Her compound eyes studied the tactical data with growing confusion. The probe attack on Kepler Station had failed. More disturbing, it had failed against only 3 enemy ships. "Explain this failure," she commanded, her mental voice echoing through the hive mind. War Commander Thex, one of her primary tactical drones, projected the battle analysis. "Queen Mother, the probe encountered an unknown species. They call themselves humans. Their fighting methods are unusual." "Unusual how?" "They do not follow standard tactical doctrines. They adapt their strategies during combat. They use primitive kinetic weapons instead of energy beams. Most concerning, they appear to fight harder when their casualties increase." The Queen Mother's massive form shifted on her throne. In 300 years of conquest, no species had ever made the Cosmore retreat. The hive mind was perfect, organized, efficient, unstoppable. How could 3 ships disrupt that perfection? These humans must be eliminated quickly, before they contaminate the other coalition species with their methods. "Prepare Battle Group 7. 50,000 warriors should be sufficient." "Yes, Queen Mother. Shall I deploy them to the standard formation?" "No." The Queen Mother's mental voice carried a note of caution. "These humans appear to exploit predictability. Use adaptive swarm tactics." And Thex, authorization for total extermination protocols. "I want these creatures eliminated completely." At Kepler Station, the coalition leadership gathered in emergency session. The victory against the probe attack had given them hope, but intelligence reports were sobering. The main Cosmore fleet was mobilizing, and this time they were sending everything they had. Colonel David Park, newly arrived with the second wave of human reinforcements, stood before a holographic display showing the approaching enemy forces. 50,000 ships, he announced calmly. Approximately 1 million ground troops. Full battle group deployment with hive ship support. Admiral Vextar's head drooped. "Colonel, we have perhaps 300 functioning ships remaining in our entire fleet. How can we possibly—" "Admiral," Park interrupted. "You're thinking like a defender again. We're not going to sit here and wait for them to come to us. What do you propose?" Park looked around the room at the assembled alien commanders. Some were crystalline beings whose light patterns showed obvious fear. Others were aquatic species whose translators bubbled with anxiety. All of them were decent, peaceful people who had never imagined the kind of war that was coming. "I'm proposing that we teach you how humans really fight. But first I need authorization from Admiral Chen." Park activated his long-range communicator. The transmission would take hours to reach Earth, but he needed permission for what he was about to suggest. "Admiral Chen, this is Colonel Park. The Cosmore are escalating to full battle group deployment. Request authorization for Death World Protocol Omega." The coalition officers exchanged confused glances. Dr. Vasquez, who had remained with the fleet as a liaison, looked troubled. "Colonel, are you sure that's necessary?" she asked quietly. "Doctor, these people asked for our help. If we're going to save them, we need to stop holding back." Admiral Vexatar leaned forward. "What is Death World Protocol Omega?" Park was quiet for a moment. "Admiral, since we've been here, we've been fighting the way civilized people fight. We've been trying not to horrify you too much. Protocol Omega means we fight the way humans learned to fight on Earth. Before we learned to be civilized." "I don't understand the difference." Dr. Vasquez pulled up her tablet showing images of human history. "Admiral, what you've seen so far was human military doctrine, organized, professional, controlled. What the Colonel is talking about is human survival instinct. It's what happens when we stop thinking about being good and start thinking about staying alive." The images on her screen showed scenes from Earth's history, ancient battles, world wars, urban warfare. But what struck the alien observers wasn't the technology or tactics. It was the expression on human faces. There was something in their eyes that spoke of a species that had learned to kill without hesitation. "Your species really evolved for warfare," whispered the Zephyrian officer, her crystal form dimming with something like fear. "No," Park corrected. "We evolved for survival. But on Earth, survival meant being better at violence than everything else that wanted to kill us." Admiral Chen's response came back 6 hours later. The message was brief: authorization granted. "Do what's necessary." Park gathered the human forces in the station's main cargo bay. 300 Marines, ship crews, and technical personnel. Behind them stood thousands of coalition personnel, watching with a mixture of hope and dread. "People, we've got 1,000,000 ship swarm coming our way," Park announced. "They want to wipe out every peaceful species in this sector. They think they're the perfect killing machines." He paused, looking at his troops. These were Earth's children, products of a world that had taught them to survive by being apex predators. "They're wrong. We are the perfect killing machines, and today we're going to prove it." Sergeant Thompson raised her hand. "Sir, what about civilian casualties? The coalition species don't fight like we do." "Good question, Sergeant. We're going to teach them, not to be like us, but to support us." "Admiral Vextar?" The alien commander stepped forward nervously. "Yes, Colonel. Your people are good at building things, aren't they? Engineering, manufacturing, logistics?" "Yes, of course. We are a constructive species. Perfect. We need you to stop thinking like builders and start thinking like weaponizers. Take everything you've built for peace and figure out how to use it for war." Dr. Vasquez activated her tablet, showing manufacturing data. "Admiral, your industrial capacity is incredible. You could build thousands of ships if you needed to. The question is, can you build them for destruction instead of exploration?" Over the next 18 hours, Kepler Station transformed. The coalition species worked frantically to implement human suggestions. Mining equipment became kinetic bombardment systems. Exploration drones were rigged with explosives. Even the food replicators were modified to produce chemical weapons. Admiral Vextar watched his people work with growing unease. They were turning their entire civilization into a weapon. "Is this what war really means?" he asked Dr. Vasquez. "Corrupting everything peaceful into something deadly?" "Admiral, humans learned a long time ago that war isn't about being honorable or civilized. It's about making the enemy stop fighting. Sometimes that means becoming temporarily uncivilized so that civilization can survive. But what if we become like them? What if this violence changes us permanently?" Dr. Vasquez was quiet for a moment. "That's the risk, Admiral. That's why humans try so hard to be peaceful when we can. We know what we're capable of when we let go of our restraints." The tactical alarm sounded. Long-range sensors had detected the Cosmore fleet dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Colonel Park studied the enemy formation on the main display. It was massive. Thousands of ships in perfect coordination moving like a single organism. "Admiral Vextar, signal all coalition forces. Tell them we're about to show them something they've never seen before." "What's that, Colonel?" Park's expression was grim. "A species that learned to fight by fighting everything on their home planet, including each other." The Cosmore fleet began its approach, confident in their overwhelming numbers. They had never lost a major engagement. Their hive mind was perfect, their tactics flawless, but they had never fought humans before. And humans had been perfecting the art of war since they first picked up rocks and decided that the thing across the cave was a threat. "All ships," Park broadcasted on the fleet frequency. "This is Colonel Park. Today we show the galaxy what Death World Protocol Omega really means. Remember, we don't fight for territory or resources. We fight for survival. And on Earth, that meant fighting until the enemy was completely destroyed." The battle for the Coalition's survival was about to begin, and for the first time in galactic history, the Cosmore were about to learn what it meant to face a species that had evolved to be perfect predators. The final battle began with the largest space engagement in galactic history. 50,000 Cosmore ships faced 300 Coalition vessels and 3 human warships. By every tactical analysis, it should have been a massacre. It was, just not the one anyone expected. Colonel Park stood on the bridge of the Terran Pride, watching the enemy formation approach. The Cosmore moved in perfect coordination, a living wall of death advancing across space. "All Coalition forces, this is Park. Remember what we practiced. You don't have to fight like us, just support us. Keep their fighters busy while we go for the big targets." Admiral Vextar's voice came back, tight with fear but determined. "Understood, Colonel. Coalition fleet, advance to engagement range. May whatever gods watch over us protect us all." The space battle erupted with devastating fury. Coalition ships, newly armed with human-designed kinetic weapons, tore through Cosmore formations that had expected energy beam attacks. The enemy's sophisticated shields were useless against solid projectiles moving at incredible speeds. But the real surprise came when the human ships did something unprecedented. They accelerated directly into the enemy formation. "Sir, The Defiance is on a collision course with the enemy flagship, reported Tactical Officer Chen. I know, Park replied calmly. Captain Morrison knows what he's doing. The Defiance smashed into the Cosmore command ship like a missile, its reinforced hull punching through the enemy vessel's center. The ship's crew had already evacuated in boarding pods, using their own vessel as a kinetic weapon while they prepared to take the fight to the enemy's interior. Ramming speed, Park explained to the horrified coalition officers. Sometimes the best way to destroy an enemy ship is to use your own ship as a bullet. Similar tactics played out across the battlefield. Human ships, vastly outnumbered, used themselves as weapons while their crews transferred to boarding pods. It was a concept that no civilized species had ever imagined, using starships as ammunition. But the space battle was just the beginning. The real war would be fought aboard the Cosmore Queen ship. Captain Rodriguez led the assault team through the broken hull of the massive hive vessel. Behind him came 50 human Marines, and for the first time, volunteers from coalition species who had learned to fight like humans. Sergeant Thompson carried new weapons designed by coalition engineers, energy rifles that fired solid projectiles, combining alien technology with human tactics. Beside her ran a Zephyrian warrior whose crystal body pulsed with battle light, and a Narration soldier whose aquatic suit had been modified for combat. Remember, Rodriguez told his mixed unit, the Queen is somewhere in the center of this ship. She controls the entire hive mind. Take her down and the whole swarm loses coordination. The corridors of the hive ship were a nightmare of organic architecture. The walls pulsed like living tissue and the air was thick with pheromones designed to confuse enemy forces. Doesn't work on us, Thompson muttered, checking her rifle. Hard to mess with the brain chemistry of a species that evolved to ignore fear. They moved deeper into the ship, fighting through waves of Cosmore warriors. But something was different about this battle. The coalition volunteers were learning to fight with human intensity, while still maintaining their own unique abilities. The Zephyrian warrior could blind enemies with bursts of light, then strike while they were confused. The Narration used his species' natural flexibility to attack from impossible angles. They were becoming something new. Peaceful species learning the art of war. Contact front, Thompson called out as they reached a major intersection. The corridor ahead was filled with Cosmore defenders, their chitinous armor gleaming in the ship's bioluminescent lighting. But Rodriguez noticed something important. They weren't moving in perfect coordination anymore. The hive mind is breaking down, he realized. Our attacks are disrupting their mental connections. The final push to the Queen's chamber took 6 hours of brutal fighting. The humans and their coalition allies carved through the ship's defenses using tactics that grew more creative and deadly with each engagement. They turned the ship's own atmosphere recycling. Against the defenders, they used the organic walls as improvised explosives. Most importantly, they fought with a combination of human ruthlessness and alien innovation that the Cosmore couldn't counter. Finally, they reached the Queen's chamber. The Queen Mother was massive, easily 30 feet long, her body a grotesque fusion of insect and machine. Around her throne stood the last of her elite guards, and the air hummed with psychic energy as she tried to maintain control over her fragmenting hive mind. So, she said, her voice echoing through alien vocal cords, you are the humans, the species that thinks it can challenge perfection. Rodriguez stepped forward, his weapon ready. Behind him, his mixed unit of humans and coalition volunteers prepared for the final fight. Lady, we don't think we can challenge perfection. We know we can destroy it. Because humans learned a long time ago that nothing in the universe is perfect. Everything can be killed if you're willing to pay the price. The Queen Mother's compound eyes focused on him. You speak of death so casually. What manner of monsters are you? We're the monsters that protect peaceful people, Rodriguez replied. We're what evolution creates when a world tries to kill everything that lives on it. And today you're going to learn why that's a bad thing to threaten. The final battle was brief and decisive. The Queen Mother fought with the fury of a species that had never known defeat. But she faced something she had never encountered. Humans fighting alongside allies they had learned to protect. When she fell, the psychic scream that echoed through the hive ship was audible across space. The entire Cosmore fleet stopped moving as one, their coordination shattered, their collective mind broken. All Cosmore forces, Rodriguez broadcast on all frequencies, your queen is dead. Your hive is broken. You have one choice. Retreat to the Galactic Rim and never threaten these species again, or we will hunt down every last one of you. The response was immediate. Across the battlefield, Cosmore ships began withdrawing, their perfect formations dissolving into chaos as individual vessels fled in random directions. 3 days later, Admiral Vextar stood in the observation deck of Kepler Station, watching the last of the enemy ships disappear into faster-than-light travel. The war was over, but he wasn't sure what they had won. Colonel Park joined him at the viewport. The human commander looked tired but satisfied. "It's finished," Park said simply. "Is it?" Vextar asked. "Colonel, what we learned about war, what we learned about violence, can we ever go back to being the peaceful people we were?" Park considered the question. "Admiral, humans have been asking themselves that same question for thousands of years. Every time we fight a war, we worry that we'll lose the part of ourselves that's worth protecting. And what answer have you found? That the price of peace is eternal vigilance. Someone has to be willing to fight for those who can't fight for themselves. Someone has to be the monster so that good people can sleep safely at night." Dr. Vasquez approached them, carrying a data tablet. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the psychological impact of the war on coalition species. It's interesting. How so? Your people haven't become violent like humans, but you've learned to support violence when it's necessary. You've learned to be what humans call civilians with teeth, peaceful people who can become dangerous when threatened." Vextar nodded slowly. "And what does that make us now?" "It makes you survivors," Park answered. "It makes you a species that can protect itself, and it makes you allies that humans can trust." 6 months later, the Terran Coalition Accords were signed on Earth. Humanity joined the galactic community not as equals, but as something unique, the designated defenders of peaceful civilization. The galaxy had learned a difficult truth. Peace was not a natural state. It was something that had to be fought for and protected. And sometimes that protection required monsters. But they had also learned something else. When peaceful species worked together with natural warriors, they could create something stronger than either could achieve alone. The coalition provided the moral compass, the technology, and the industrial capacity. Humans provided the will to fight and the knowledge of how to win. Admiral Chen stood in her office on Terra Station, reading the final reports from the Cosmore War. Earth's children had proven themselves in the galaxy's crucible, but at a cost. They were no longer unknown. Every species in the galaxy now knew what humans were capable of. "Admiral," her aide asked, "do you think this will make us enemies? Other species might see us as a threat now." Chen looked out at the stars, where human ships now patrolled alongside coalition vessels, protecting peaceful worlds from those who would destroy them. "Maybe," she admitted, "but they'll also know that as long as they're peaceful, they have nothing to fear from us. And as long as there are threats to peaceful people, they'll be glad we exist." The galaxy had changed. The age of easy conquest was over. Any species that threatened innocent lives would now face something they had never encountered before: humans fighting alongside. Allies they had learned to protect existed because war now had a human face, and that face was watching, waiting, ready to remind anyone who forgot that Earth's children were the perfect predators, tempered by conscience, but unleashed when necessary. The Cosmore had